Good afternoon. Welcome to Studio One on this Thursday, March 19th. The party's over and back to the books for most of us here at the U after a week of spring break. While we were gone, the Sioux swept the University of Minnesota, seating them first in the NCAA series pairings. You're looking live at the Winter Sports Center, where this weekend the Sioux play host to St. Lawrence Saints in the first round of the NCAA tournament. I'm Tom Buehring, and today we'll go live to the Winter Sports Center and meet St. Lawrence head coach Joe Marsh and find out more about our hockey opponents. We'll also hear from catcher Mark Salas of the Minnesota Twins, and our Open Doors segment will feature Pulitzer Prize author Larry McMurty, who is headlining this week's Writers' Conference. But first, we'll go to the news desk with Lynn Shocker and Courtney Bateman. Courtney?
Thank you, Tom. Most North Dakotans, at least those who vote, say they don't mind if their income tax goes up.
Just over half of the voters yesterday approved the increase in the state income tax originally passed by a special session of the state legislature last December. The special election held yesterday demonstrated again the rift between eastern and western North Dakota. Voters in the western two-thirds of the state voted against the tax hike, but the eastern third voted for it, and that was just enough to approve the measure. Governor Sinner called the special election to, as he put it, clear the air about the tax increase issue. And some in the legislature say they're glad the state's citizens have approved the tax hike, but others say they don't think the legislature will work as hard now to cut spending. And there is still a chance that the legislature will pass a new tax measure altogether, which would make yesterday's election pointless.
President Reagan is on the hot seat tonight. Reagan will face reporters for the first time since it was discovered funds from the Iranian arms sale were being diverted to Nicaraguan rebels. Reagan says he hopes to clear up questions concerning the Iran-Contra affair, but Senate Republican leaders say the president has said privately that there is no honest way for him to respond until all investigations are complete. The press conference comes just 2 days after the indictment of former White House aide Michael Deaver on criminal charges stemming from the affair. The news conference is scheduled for 7 o'clock Central Standard Time and will be broadcast on the 3 major networks.
A French researcher who gave himself an experimental AIDS vaccine says test results are significant but do not prove the vaccine works. He hopes the vaccine will protect against more than one strain of the virus. It was the first test of that vaccine on humans.
And in the Soviet Union, local newspapers report that no more than 30 AIDS cases have been identified in the country, and more than two-thirds of those among foreigners. The Soviets have issued several reports on AIDS in the past month, each with a different count on how many have the disease. And finally, after 5 days, a Grand Forks baby is still missing. 1-year-old Jessie Pasnick was taken from her babysitters last Sunday, apparently by her father and without her mother knowing about it. Tom?
A footnote to that baby Jessie story. There'll be a benefit dance next Tuesday beginning at 8 p.m. at the VFW to raise money for private investigators and for the court situation. We're going to break for this, but don't go away. When we come back, a look at the weather, plus much more right here on Studio One.
Studio One is sponsored by J.C. Penney, located in Columbia Mall. Smarter than ever, J.C. Penney.
Hello, and welcome to our special guest, McGruff the Crime Dog.
Thanks, Dick.
Now, do I understand that neighborhood watch programs have reduced crime in some areas as much as 50%?
That's right, but there's more to be done. Start a volunteer escort service for older folks.
Aha, good news for the old folks at home, eh? What about the young folks?
Start McGruff houses.
Which are?
Houses kids can duck into in case of trouble.
For more information, write to this address and help
take a bite out of crime.
All this week on Campus America, the world's biggest snowman, bathroom advertising at Penn State, student entrepreneurs,
I want to be the most successful person in business that I can be.
an interview with John Malloy, Mr. Dress for Success,
In fact, one of the keys to intelligence is how long you can concentrate.
and Ian Scholes.
In LA, creative can describe anything. A legal deal, a producer's package, a late brunch and tanning session. It's hard to figure out what people do there besides leave messages and drive.
On Campus America, all this week on NCTV.
It's 4 minutes past the hour. Still up ahead on Studio One, catcher Mark Salas on his role and the upcoming outlook for the 1987 Minnesota Twins. Also, author of such books as Terms of Endearment and Lonesome Dove, Larry McMurty will be the focus on our Open Door segment. And we'll go live to the Winter Sports Center and talk to St. Lawrence head coach Joe Marsh. But before we do all that, here's meteorologist Pam Coonan and the weather. Pam?
Thank you, Tom. Well, at 4 o'clock today in Grand Forks, we had a temperature of 38 degrees. Our relative humidity was 94%, and our winds were southeasterly at 10 miles per hour. Since 6 this morning, we've received about 5/100 of an inch of rain. Looking at our 6 a.m. surface map, a low-pressure system was centered over eastern South Carolina, with a cold front extending down through Florida. Now this whole system has brought rain to Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. As you can see, temperatures behind this front were a bit cooler than temperatures ahead of the front. Fog was also widespread in the southeast this morning. This fog was due to overnight cooling in this area. Another area of low pressure was over northeastern Nebraska, with the trough extending through Iowa, Illinois, into western Indiana. Now this system has brought some rain and light drizzle to northern Iowa and southern Minnesota. Another low pressure system was over eastern Wyoming, with a frontal system extending down to Arizona, northern Arizona. This system has been moving southeastward and will continue to do so, and will affect our area tomorrow, or for the next few days actually. And I'll be back later in the program to tell you how this will affect our weather. Back to you, Tom.
Thanks, Pam. The first crack of the bat always is a refreshing sign of a spring entrance. Hard to believe that baseball is right around the corner. But in Florida, Major League Baseball is into a full schedule of exhibition games. The Minnesota Twins head into the '87 season with optimism, and many think rightly so. Well, we'll hear from catcher Mark Salas when Studio One continues after this.
Maybe someone you know, or even love, uses cocaine, and you still haven't told them how badly you feel about it. Well, there's no more time to look the other way. Cocaine and crack are addictive, and they kill. Please, don't be a part of the silent lie that says cocaine's okay. Speak from your heart and help save a life.
Cocaine, the big lie. Call 1-800-662-HELP.
Children believe what their parents tell them.
You're pathetic. You can't do anything right.
You disgust me. Just shut up.
You can't be my kid.
You're worthless.
Hey, stupid, don't you know how to listen?
You're never going to amount to anything.
Why don't you go find some other place to live?
Words hit as hard as a fist. Stop and listen to what you're saying. You might not believe your ears.
I wish you were never born.
Take time out. Don't take it out on your kid.
It's 7 minutes past the hour. Several weeks back, Mark Salas, catcher for the Minnesota Twins, visited Grand Forks on a promotional tour for this upcoming season. At that time, the Twins had taken some criticism for not signing free agent Jack Morris, who many felt would fill a major need in the Twins' pitching staff. They have since plugged the hole by acquiring reliever Jeff Reardon. We asked the Twins' masked man, affectionately labeled the Chief, about his perception of baseball from behind the plate. Mark, I want to ask you first about last season, your impressions. A lot of people had anticipated that the Twins were going to contend strong for their division. Your impressions, what happened last year?
It seemed like we never really got it together. We'd score like 10, 15 runs a game, and our pitchers would give up 16, 17 runs a game. But and when we didn't score runs, the pitchers were holding them down, you know, and we just couldn't help them out. It seemed like we never put it all together at the same time. Because, like Neil Heaton, he pitched like 8 games and he lost 2-1, 3-1, and we just couldn't score him any runs. Smithson might pitch and give up 8 runs, and we're scoring him 12 runs. So, you know, we really never put it really together, and that's all we got to do this year.
As a catcher, is that particularly frustrating for you?
It is, because you're sitting back there and you're trying to make the best calls you can. You're trying to get on the same wavelength as the pitcher, and if they shake you off and they give up a home run, or you're given a different sign, they shake you off and you go back to the same one they threw it and they hit a home run. It's like, you know, you try to battle out there. It's like, me and Smitty were doing pretty good. We got on the same wavelengths a few times. And if I could get with everybody like that, I think we're going to be okay.
How does that happen? How do you get on a, quote, wavelength with a pitcher?
It's kind of tough. I guess you just got to keep, you know, catching them all the time and stuff. Like Smithson and me, I think he won at least 10 games with me behind the plate. And all the ones he lost, I wasn't there. And he told Ray Miller, you know, he wants me to catch him all the time. Maybe Ray Miller had it in for him and didn't do it. And then Dick Such didn't have the chance, you know, because Ray and Dick were both pitching coaches, and they just both battled, and they just, you know, and Ray was the head guy, so it was his choice.
Does the element of friendship have anything to do with that type of a?
Yeah, it could. You know, there's a lot of me and Smitty. You know, when during the day, you know, we'll go have lunch and stuff like that when he pitches. And we made a bet that, you know, I called it that his kid's going to come on Thursday. So every Thursday he owed me dinner. So, you know, before he pitched, he'd take me out to dinner. And that's a good way. There's a lot of guys that owe steak dinners and stuff. Like Puckett hit, what, 31 home runs? And he told Bruno, if he hits anything over 5, you owe me a dinner. So Bruno's going to, keep paying him for 2 more years at least.
He said pretty well.
Yeah, so, I guess you got to get close with the pitchers like you try to. You talk to them on the bench and stuff. I think that's all it is.
New turf, new uniforms, new logo, new manager, new radio announcer. Everything new except with the exception of the roster. A lack of signing Jack Morris as a potential free agent for a new look for the Twins. Now for the fan, that affects the fan in one way. How about the player? How does that affect a player when he opens the paper and sees the possibility of signing a player like Jack Morris, but does it? How does that affect a ball player?
Well, I was in California and I was reading it, and I was really disappointed we didn't sign him because Jack Morris could win you 20 games, and we can have that. There's 20 more games that's going to be in the win column. And he's the winningest pitcher in the 80s, but maybe his demands were too high. And Pohlad, like George was saying, Pohlad's going to give him the money, but the guys downstairs have to calm Pohlad down because he doesn't know baseball that much. And it was funny because, I thought we were really going to get him, and I was pretty pumped that we were going to get him, and then we didn't. That hurts a little bit because you're losing a 20-game winner right there. So, I think our starter's going to be good, though, because we got the relievers now.
I think the fans would want to know, what happens when a catcher walks out to the mound to talk to a pitcher? What kind of conversation do you have? Have you ever had anything bizarre happen in terms of a conversation?
Oh, well, me and Smithson, again, we're pretty close, and I know how I could yell at him and stuff. One time, we were yelling so bad at each other, his brother thought we were going to fight on the mound. And you just got to know who the guys you can talk to and stuff like that. But otherwise, you go out there, try to calm down, say, hey, you going fish tomorrow, going golf, and something like that. Just try to get his mind off the, what happened. Like Bert, he gave up so many home runs, you go out there, what could you tell Bert? He's a veteran, he's been out there, 18 years, something like that, and yeah. He's going to go back, go right on the mound, and throw right back at him.
You mentioned your dream about being a Major League Baseball player. What's that like? Do you ever wake up in the morning and have to pinch yourself to realize that you're a Major League Baseball player?
Yeah, I did. Last year, or the year before my first year, when I was hitting like 340, I'd wake up and, wow, it's like 12 o'clock. I want to go to the ballpark and play. It's just a great feeling. There's still things I can learn, and I'm still in the big leagues, and I hope I can stay around for about 15 years and I'll get out happy instead of, getting released. I'd rather retire.
Mark Salas, thanks for joining us. We wish you the best of a 1987 season as well as for the Minnesota Twins. Mark Salas, catcher for the Minnesota Twins, and for baseball fans, just a reminder that the Twins open up their season against the Oakland A's at the Dome on April the 7th. Studio One will continue after this.
Guess where Bill is?
Blue chip Bill? Gotta be Wall Street.
No, he joined the Peace Corps.
I thought that went out with the 60s.
Peace Corps. It's creating food systems in Africa, turning deserts back into forests, and fighting malaria in Asia. It's hands-on and hats off. It's making a friend. It's been tough, but for 25 years, the Peace Corps has been making a difference in the world.
Bill, I can't believe it.
Peace Corps, the toughest job you'll ever love.
All this week on the Golden Years of Television, the Jack Benny Program with Bob Hope.
He's not even halfway, and he's already traveled further than the fugitive.
Elkie Summer.
How long did you say your wife was going to be away?
Only 3 more.
The Beach Boys. Walt Disney.
Whatever you can say to me, you can say in front of him.
On the Golden Years of Television, all this week on NCTV.
It's 14 minutes past the hour. All this week, the 18th Annual Writers' Conference has been featuring a number of writers. Highlighting the event is Larry McMurty, author of such novels as Terms of Endearment, The Last Picture Show, and Lonesome Dove. Our Open Doors segment looks at this Pulitzer Prize-winning writer and his approach to the craft.
Yeah, I think it's true to assume that writers are made. I certainly didn't feel that I was born a writer. I felt that I was, actually until I started college, I thought I'd probably be a veterinarian. And I was going to go to Texas A&M and be a vet. And I saw a television program about Rice, which is, at that time, was a totally free school and very hard to get into. And by miraculous luck, I got into it. And I think it was there that I really began to read. There weren't any books to read much in my part of West Texas. And from reading, I became to writing. And I do think it's usually reading that makes a writer.
I was just going to comment on that. From the panel discussions, you often refer to that it is the reading that makes a writer.
It's extremely important. I think you come to write, you discover literature, and it's what a pleasure it is, and what a stable pleasure, and what a varied pleasure. And If you get deeply enough attracted to it, then you begin to want to see, sometimes, if you can do it too. A lot of writers start off imitating other writers that they've read and liked, and then gradually you may work through many enthusiasms and an imitative phase and eventually develop a material and a style of your own.
Larry, if you could construct the perfect writer, what type of ingredients would go into an author?
Well, a curiosity about the human condition, an appetite for literature, I think, and an imagination. Now that we're talking about a fiction writer here. There are lots of different kinds of writers, you know. There are historians and biographers and critics and journalists and hundreds of different subcategories of writer, but I'm talking largely about fiction writing or imaginative literature. And the essential quality is the capacity to imagine and to enjoy working with your imagination and using it and seeing what it will produce. I mean, I am not reportorial at all. I don't take notes on my neighborhood scandals or really pay that much attention to people. I really am more interested in what I can make up and what I can imagine.
So the characters we might read about that you would write about are not necessarily...
They bear no relation really to anyone I know except that they're human, and people I know, that is, they're human as I can make them, and people I know are human, but I have not taken a trait here and a trait there and a trait there and combined them in a sort of mosaic and made them into a character. I start with a visual image usually, or a line of conversation, and then the character grows in my understanding and vision, and I let them, they feel quite alive to me. That is, I don't feel like I'm manipulating them by typing these sentences. I feel like they're alive and doing what live people would do.
Now let's compare you to a trackman. There are trackmen that can run long distances, but not necessarily sprint. Is Larry McMurty the same way? Can Larry McMurty write novels, but not necessarily the family newsletter?
I can write essays. I cannot write short fiction, and I can't write poetry. I am definitely a distance runner. I pace myself like a distance runner. I write so much a day, no more, no less. I always have. I mean, I just chose an arbitrary number like 5 pages, which turns out to be the right number for me. And for 30 years now, when I'm writing, I write 5 pages a day of fiction, first draft. I never go over it. I never go under it. I can do other things faster. I write screenplays at a 10-page-a-day pace because a screenplay is just a little strip of dialogue down the middle of a page, and it doesn't take much of it to make 10 pages. But I definitely believe in pace. A novel is something that's going to take you a given length of time. And certainly you have days when you can write 10 pages or 15 pages, but if you do that, you exhaust yourself. There's a day when it comes when the well is empty, and I don't want that to happen. I write easily, I don't strain, I don't struggle, don't suffer very much. I just write my 5 pages and then I do something else for the rest of the day, like make speeches.
How about with the books that have turned into movies, Terms of Endearment in particular? What does that do when you watch that on the screen? Is that disappointing for you? Does it bother you, the fact that these characters that you've created suddenly take a stereotype image?
No, that doesn't bother me at all. I've been involved in film work myself a lot. That is, I've written a lot of scripts. Not very many of them have been made into movies, but I'm not possessive of my material. I am interested in writing the book. When I finish writing the book, I have basically exhausted my interest in the story. I've been extremely lucky. Of the 4 books of mine that have been filmed, 3 have been made into very admirable films. And I watch them with a certain interest and a certain detachment. I'm not, I'm not deeply involved with it. I don't get upset. I've been lucky. In Terms of Endearment is a parallel version to my book. It's not many scenes in it were actually taken from the book. I think only 2, the 2 death scenes, 2 scenes just before she dies, were pretty much as they were in the book. But the rest of the scenes were made up by Mr. Brooks, the director, writer, producer, who was stimulated by the book and who essentially created a sort of a parallel version. It didn't bother me one bit. It was effective. And he, after all, spent 7 years of his life getting it made, writing it, producing it, getting it, fighting for it, which is a lot longer than I spent writing the book. I spent maybe a year on the book. He spent 7 years making the film. So I feel that he more than earned the right to do anything that he wanted to do.
Larry McMurty, author. The 18th annual UND Writers Conference will end tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. with a reading from poet and novelist James Welch. Now, Welch's work has been likened to John Steinbeck's early work and Ernest Hemingway's short stories. And tonight, if you're interested, award-winning poet Joy Harjo, and I hope I pronounced that right, will be giving an 8 p.m. reading, both of those at the Memorial Union Ballroom. Studio One continues after this.
Man, I got me a college man.
But Mom, we can't afford college.
Nonsense. You worked hard to get accepted, so I'll get you on that bus somehow.
The United Negro College Fund has helped thousands of students, but the fact is, the job's not done. There are thousands we can't reach, not without the funds. So support the United Negro College Fund.
All this week on New Grooves, Billy brags.
Give my greetings to New Brunette. My greetings to New Brunette.
Jason and the Scorchers.
On the golden ball and chain.
And Flesh for Lulu.
I go crazy.
On New Grooves with Meg Griffin, all this week on NCTV.
Welcome back to Studio One. It's 21 minutes past the hour. No question about it, this week will be the last weekend of hockey for the Sioux, at home, at least for this season. The first round of the NCAA tournament begins tomorrow night, with both teams advancing, moving on to Detroit. St. Lawrence, this week's opposition, brings their 24-9 record into Grand Forks, not having faced the Sioux since 1983. Joining us now live from the Winter Sports Center is St. Lawrence head coach Joe Marsh. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We heard that you got in late last night. Can you explain a little bit about your rendezvous down here?
Well, I was a little mixed up. My athletic director and myself, we got our signals crossed, and the flight was perfect. We flew nonstop from Ottawa to Winnipeg, but we didn't have a bus waiting for us, so we sat around the airport a little bit, gave the kids some money, so they got something to eat, which is first and foremost on their mind, I think, and then we just bust down. We were a little bit late, but we're so pumped up just to be here, and it's so much fun. It was just a little inconvenience.
You fed them, but you didn't send them to bed right away. We took it that they took the ice last night too late.
Yeah, we had a quick skate, about a 45-minute skate, just to get the kinks out. And the kids are so excited. Like I said, might as well give them a chance to poke around the rink a little bit. And this is such an impressive facility. It was fun just to go out and skate, burn off a little of the nervous energy, and look around the building a bit.
I tell you what, Coach, it's an interesting situation because both teams have not faced each other this year. And immediately what the media and people begin to do is try to find comparisons. The only way we can do that is by looking at similar oppositions, Yale and Lowell this year. Mm-hmm. Now the Sioux lost to Lowell, but St. Lawrence defeated Lowell. Do coaches take interest in that as much as we do?
I don't really. There's so many variables that go into it. I guess Lowell was missing a few skaters when we played them. Perhaps that North Dakota means so much more to Lowell than on a St. Lawrence game, since Hockey East and the West, those count on their record. The Lowell game didn't count against them, with us. It's hard to really compare scores. Maybe North Dakota felt that same way about Yale, where Yale came in, and I guess Yale gave them a pretty good game. We had tough games with Yale until we got to the ECAC semifinal round. We played just about as well as we played all year and beating them 7-0. But Yale's a tough team, and they're the type of team that's well disciplined and don't beat themselves. But it's very difficult, I think, to really compare scores.
Coach Marsh, we're more familiar with the Hockey East. We have an interlocking schedule with them. We lack a bit of knowledge with the ECAC. How do the two conferences compare with one another?
I think they're very similar. I think the records when Hockey East and the ECAC have played one another are fairly close. Our league may have the edge this year and last, but it's hard. I mean, it's very close, and there's still some strong rivalries there. Myself, you hate to see the BU and BCs gone from your regular schedule, and it's nice to have those back. Some of the people, for instance, in our area, really miss seeing them, but we think we have an excellent league, and It's definitely dominated by a skating league. I think our best team this year, without question, is Harvard, and they are a skating team. They're a European-style team. They play on a good-sized ice surface, and they really move the puck. It's a good brand of hockey, as is Hockey East, certainly, and WCHA. I mean, college hockey, I don't think we're that far off, really, from the other styles of play that much.
Coach, let's stretch the comparison a little bit farther. How does it differ from the East Coast and the Midwest?
I guess the old adage is, the West is a little bit more physical, bigger. The East tends to stray more to the European skating type game. I'm not so sure that's really true. I can't say for sure. I haven't seen that many of the Western teams. I know we can play probably a little bit of both, really. We're probably not quite as European-oriented as Harvard, say, but we can maybe mix it up a little bit more than them and maybe tend more to a North American or a pro style where you dump the puck in. It all depends on what type of rink you're in. We certainly would hope to come in here on a beautiful ice surface like this and skate. We prefer that type of game, and hopefully we're going to be able to do that.
Coach, we want to thank you for our time.
Oh, thank you very much. It's great being here.
We appreciate it, and the best of luck this weekend.
Thank you.
We look for a good series.
I hope we can provide it.
I'm sure you will. Joe Marsh, head coach for St. Lawrence, looking to upset the Sioux this weekend. We'll be back with more of Studio One after this.
All this week, the adult cartoon show drives you buggy. See a not-so-dirty bird bath. The fabulous flames, hot stuff. A low-down baby. Ick, a slick spider. Everybody get down, get funky, and get bombed as the teacher busts her chops and sheep be bad. So you thought you were high class, but that was nothing but a lie. On the adult cartoon show, all this week on NCTV.
It's 27 minutes past the hour. Now, not only are Sioux hockey competing for elite honors, the women's swim team will be in Indianapolis over the next 3 days for the NCAA Nationals, and men's wrestling and NCAA Division I championships at the University of Maryland today through Saturday. Pam Coonan is here to give us one last look at the weather. Pam?
Well, thank you, Tom. We'll look at our 6 a.m. forecast map for tomorrow. As you can see, it's a pretty boring weather map for tomorrow. No significant weather system will be affecting the tri-state area. However, a low pressure system will be over western Nebraska. You can just see a little bit of that there. Now, this system could bring some, or will bring some, light snow and drizzle to the western part of the region, and some rain or light drizzle and rain to the eastern part of the region also. There's a risk of freezing rain in central North Dakota tonight and tomorrow. Low temperatures will be from the low 30s in the west to the mid and upper 30s in the east. As this low moves eastward, the winds will become easterly at 10 to 15 miles per hour in the east, and in the western part of the region, they'll be northeasterly at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Temperature will remain steady tonight and tomorrow in the Grand Forks area, and we can expect a high temperature of 39 degrees tomorrow. Our winds will be easterly at 10 to 15 miles per hour. We can expect the light rain to continue through tonight and into tomorrow. As we move into the weekend, we'll begin to cool late tomorrow afternoon, but we won't be cooling that much. Low temperatures will be in the mid-20s, and the highs will be in the upper 20s to low 30s. With the cooler temperatures comes a chance of snow. And looks like we aren't going to be seeing the sun this weekend, so Tom, you can probably put away your bathing suit.
Oh, and I had it on just for the show today, too, Pam. Thanks, Pam. We'd like to thank our guests, head coach Joe Marsh of the St. Lawrence hockey team, author Larry McMurty, and catcher Mark Salas of the Minnesota Twins for being a part of us today. From all of us here at Studio One, thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.